Documentary filmmaking can be one of the most adventurous, creatively stimulating, and fulfilling career paths out there. But taking the dive into it can be scary. From setting out on your own as a freelancer, to the upfront investment in gear, to the time it takes to build your skill set and network, it is not easy. And yet, you're here. If you're watching this, you may be one of the brave souls out there wanting to buck the traditional career path, and you're wondering, could this whole filmmaking path be for me? Well, to help you decide, in this video, I'm going to go over the 5 signs that you will make it as a documentary filmmaker. And by the end of the video, you'll know the answer to this question. Is this path right for you? Hey everyone, if you're new here, my name is Austin Meyer. I am an Oakland-based documentary filmmaker, National Geographic Explorer, and on this channel, I share the field-tested skills, mindsets, and lessons that have helped me on my journey as a documentary filmmaker. The first sign that you will make it as a documentary filmmaker is if you love the process. What I mean by that is that you genuinely have to love the day in, day out grind of telling stories, of creating films, and developing at your craft. A lot of people will start down the road of filmmaking because it looks cool. They want to go to film festivals, say they made something for X or Y platforms or X or Y clients, and they want the accolades. But if you're playing for all the results, those awards next to your name, the amount of views you get, those laurels on your film poster, you are absolutely setting yourself up for disappointment, burnout, and just moving on from this industry altogether. Now, why do I say that? Because documentaries take a ridiculous amount of work and time to create. You are going to spend so much more time in the process of making, or so much more time on the climb, than you will at the destination or the mountaintop. So if you don't love the day in, day out process of making these projects, you will be burnt out by the time that you get to that destination that you've been dreaming of for so long. Another reason you shouldn't play for the accolades is because whether you get an award, published somewhere, or seen by a certain amount of people, at some point, those things are out of your control. It requires someone else to put you on. Why would you ever stake your happiness and fulfillment on what someone else controls? If you want to make it as a documentary filmmaker, I urge you to reflect on whether or not this statement rings true. You love the process of telling stories so much that just the act of creating them is the success itself. That's why, for me, my goal is not to win an Oscar for Best Documentary. My goal is the pursuit of winning an Oscar for Best Documentary. It's the process of making films, finding my creative voice, building my skills, and just improving at the craft over the course of decades to get to the point where it's even a possibility to earn an honor like that. That's my goal. And because of that, every day I go out there and try to make something, I am accomplishing my goal. Now, speaking of the course of decades, that brings me to the next sign that you will make it as a documentarian, which is if you are patient. Patience is a key ingredient to documentary success on multiple levels. The first is the level of individual projects. Documentaries take a long time. I remember when I moved from a quick turn journalism context into the land of documentary films, it was really hard to get used to the timelines these projects worked on. I couldn't get the quick dopamine hits of filming something one day and then putting it out the next. Instead, I committed to playing the long game, documenting change over time, and typically on a timeline that I didn't control. Now, yes, some documentaries can be made very quick, but it's also true that others take decades to complete. The need for patience comes by way of staying open to whatever timeline a story wishes to unfold on. Now, the other level that patience is important on is in the long run of your career, especially if you are super ambitious. I'm guessing that you want wins and you want them now. So patience can feel counterintuitive to the big goals that you set for yourself. But actually, patience is this beautiful counterbalance to an ambition which, when unchecked, can lead to anxiety and a lack of self-confidence. If you have the ambition to direct a Netflix documentary, but you're getting rejected by your local film festival, or you don't even like what you're making yourself, it can be easy to judge yourself, to say that you're not good enough, and to give up. But if you have patience, patience helps you endure these kind of hits because you know that you're playing a long game. And unlike being a professional athlete where biology might force you to retire by age 35 or 40, we can make films for our entire lives. So what's the rush? If you find yourself rushing the process, Ask yourself why. Whose affirmation or approval are you looking for? Who are you looking for to say that you did it? Then put the focus back on you and start making. The third sign that you will make it as a documentarian is if you are tenacious. Tenacity is another one of those qualities that can be misunderstood. Unfortunately, a lot of people view tenacity as a negative quality because they associate it with tearing other people down on your way to getting to your goals. But they really aren't the same thing at all. Tenacity is about being determined and not quitting on your goal when it gets hard or because things are not happening quickly. This is important when making documentary films because pretty much everything in documentary filmmaking is hard and doesn't happen quickly. Having tenacity doesn't mean that you don't experience setbacks or obstacles, but rather that those obstacles don't faze you because you're that focused on your macro goal. I'll give you an example. In the world of filmmaking, people will say, I'm going to get my documentary published by the New York Times, or I'm going to make this huge day rate for my services. And then after making 1 or 2 films that hardly anyone watches, they give up. And in this world of viral content, there's this belief that you pick up a camera, make your first film, and amazing things are gonna happen to you in like 6 months. And in reality, that only happens to 1 or 2 people a year. For the rest of us, myself included, it does not work that way. It takes time, effort, and a level of tenacity that matches your ambition. To sum up this quality alongside the previous one that I talked about, patience, I love this framework from entrepreneur Gary Vaynerchuk. He says, quote, macro patience and micro tenacity. You have to be tenacious in the task at hand, but patient in the overall mission, end quote. So day to day as a filmmaker, hit the ground running. Be tenacious to get your film made, but then have patience when it comes to your big goals. The fourth sign that you will make it as a documentary filmmaker is if you have humility. Again, I include this on the list because I believe it's great advice not only for making films, but also for your career in general. The definition I like best of humility is a comfort in one's own understanding of one's position in the world. When we're making documentaries, we are constantly challenged to confront the difference between what we thought a story was going to be and what the story is actually turning out to be. It takes humility to relinquish control, to acknowledge that you actually don't know everything that you thought you did, and to pivot. Similarly, in this collaborative art form, it takes humility to ask for help. It takes humility to seek out feedback that might make you want to crawl into a hole, and to then receive that feedback with an open and gracious mind. Whether or not you want them to, documentaries will humble you over and over again. And when it comes to your career, I believe having humility, again, defined as a comfort in one's own understanding of one's position in the world, can help us stay focused on who we are and what it is that we want in life, because we're less susceptible to the opinions of others. When you're humble, you don't worry as much about the opinions of others. You don't hear the cheers or the boos. And that makes it easier to follow your passions, to take calculated risks, and to deploy self-love even when those risks don't work out. And the last sign that you will make it as a documentary filmmaker is if you have self-awareness around what it means to actually make it for you. Please don't chase someone else's dream, and please don't chase the dream that someone else has for you. Reflect on who you are and what it is that you want, whether you are someone who wants to be a cinematographer living on the road 350 days a year, or an editor who works at home 9 to 5, a solo creator who side hustles making passion projects here or there, or anything else. We need to acknowledge that success doesn't look like one thing. It's not your job title or the amount of money you make or what awards you've won. Success is happiness. It's waking up feeling good. And the life and career that brings happiness is different for each and every one of us. And it also changes over time. So keep checking in with yourself. What is it that brings you joy? And if your goals or priorities change over time, which they likely will, have the humility to change your mind. All right, that's it. The 5 signs that you will make it as a documentary filmmaker. I hope that this video gave you some ideas to reflect on as you are designing the life and career that fits you best. Please take a moment, if you haven't already, to subscribe to the channel. I'd be very grateful. And if you're interested in more videos on creative mindsets, check out this video I made about the 5 lies you are telling yourself about filmmaking. See you next week. Until then, go out and tell some stories.